we had an appointment at 2 o'clock to discuss the language of sales 2.0. I am so glad you're here. So welcome to session number 3. And I'm going to apologize right away. Got a little bit of a frog, so excuse me if I mute every now and then. Welcome to call number 3 of MAPS Language of Sales. I am so glad you're here and a part of this class. And I'm here to support you in your development, new ways to communicate, and new ways to influence others that are appropriate to the way we're communicating in today's world. In MAPS Language of Sales, we're working with you on the art of sharing words and ideas in a scientific, structured way that will allow you to raise your influence as a speaker while simultaneously supporting the listener in achieving his or her goals. It's clear by the number of you that are here and that signed up for this class that you're already starting to realize the more focused you personally become on your effective use of language, the more you realize, well, how much you have to learn. And that's the exact reason you're here, right? So as we get started today, we're going to start today like we do every class. And that's first and foremost meeting me. And remember all of these. Remember to please mute yourself. You should be muted when you come in. So thanks, guys. My name is Kara Mall, and I've been a transformational coach with MAPS Coaching for almost 7 years. In fact, we're just about to hit that anniversary date. I'm a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. I'm an IPEC certified energy leadership coach, an EQ, emotional intelligence certified practitioner, and I'm a head coach within the MAPS ecosystem. I've had the honor and privilege of teaching this language of sales program for over 4 years. In fact, as I've mentioned before, this very program was the first MAPS program I ever took when I joined Keller Williams, before I even signed up for Mastery Coaching. And I am 100% honest with you when I say that I continue to use and build upon these concepts on a daily basis. You know, I'm excited for MAPS Language of Sales because it incorporates the greatest communication tools known with the lessons and experience of powerful leaders and agents who know how to move people into action. It really does tap into that art and science, right? Left brain, right brain. And it systematically teaches us and teaches you how to actively participate in a brand new language. Now, this is Zoom. This is almost 2 years into COVID. Many of you know how this works. And just in case, we're going to go over it quickly with you. Use the chat box, which depending on how you have your screen set up, could be off to the right, could be a free floating if you've got full screen mode. Use the chat box when you have a question or to answer any of the questions that I may have of the group. And you can also use the raise hand feature. And at some point in time, I may even ask some of you to verbally participate. Now, if you're going to use the raise hand feature, remember, it might be, it's best to use it if you have an urgent question that pertains to the information we're teaching right at that moment. We will have time for Q&A afterwards. And of course, I'll be letting you know at the end of the session too, when this week's office hours are. Office hours are when you can show up, you can ask any questions about what we've already learned. So in the past, these recordings are going to be available for the next 60 days after we finish the program. Now, let's do a little housekeeping right now. Use the chat box and answer this question. Do we have an official MAPS Language of Sales the next 2 weeks? Yes or no? Y'all are so smart. The answer is no. Technically, MAPS is on break. Here's the thing, though. You all have access to the recordings. If you fell a little behind, go back and re-listen to them. If you just want to solidify what you've been learning, go back and re-listen to them. Redo some of the homework. No one says you have to stop writing sentences just because we don't have class in session. This is how you learn languages. And it's not just writing the sentence, it's speaking the sentences too. So remember, you've invested in yourself and in the programs that MAPS offers. And frankly, I'm excited to be here today to work with you and work on this passion of mine, powerful language. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at what we're going to do this week. First thing we're going to do is we're going to review your growth commitment from last week. It's called homework, but you guys are adults and we don't like to use that word. So we're going to call it your growth commitment for the past week. And then I'm going to have you share some of your powerful questions and how you effectively use them through the week. And from there, we're going to review what you focused on and how understanding modal operators is a benefit because it gives us insight into the speaker's frame of reference. And then we're going to cover rapport. It's one of the few times in the class we're gonna talk about rapport because rapport is so important and how to become more effective by building instant rapport. We're going to introduce the language pattern of presuppositions and discussing why they work and how to effectively use them to give you time. And we're going to give you time to work with this, etc. And lastly, we're going to cover your growth mastery work for the coming week and including office hours. So is everybody ready to dive in? Everybody ready to dive in? Good. Well, if you are, we're going to rock and roll anyway through this. So as a quick reminder, powerful questions. And you can always flip back in your notebook or wherever you're keeping your materials for this class, and look at this section on powerful questions. Powerful questions cause the listener to stop and search for answers, right? They can't be answered with a habitual answer. They're open-ended, they're thought-provoking, they're clarity-seeking, and they're solution-oriented. They begin with words like how, what, when, where, who, if. Tell me more, say more. And remember that all powerful questions are open-ended. However, not all open-ended questions are powerful questions. So let's take a few moments and go over some of your examples. And this might be a good time for you to take some detailed notes and continue to build your library of powerful questions. And remember, you can always go back and listen to the recording and hear what everybody has to say about questions or look at it in the chat. So take a moment and type in the box, what was your favorite powerful question that you not only wrote this week, how about that you actually used? Tell me about the powerful question that you actually used this week. I'm going to go ahead and move my chat box over so that I can see. I love it. Dan, how will we know when we found you the right house? It's a great question. Angela, what's important about that? What is important about that? And how will it help you achieve your goal? Love it. Jacqueline, where are you moving to? Instead of why are you moving? Where are you moving to? Let's see. Ronald, what were your thoughts on that led you to that decision? That's a great, powerful question. What were your thoughts that led to that decision? And now so much of that is going to be tied into the rapport that we're going to be talking about later, right? Let's see. We've got Pete. What would a person dedicated to developing people and increasing their leverage do in your situation? Oh, I love that. If I could help you achieve your goal, how would that change your lives? Now let's look at that one for a second. If I were to help you change your goal, how would I change your lives? Kind of did like a little switch there. It started out as maybe if I could, is it a yes or no question? And then boom, how would it change your lives? Very powerful, Scott. How will you net more money? Love it. What would happen if the market changes and you don't find the right buyer for this unique property? I love that one. And John, I hope I have your permission to make it even more powerful for you. John, you said, what would happen if the market changes? I'm pretty sure you all agree that the market changes constantly, right? So maybe a stronger way to say that is, what will happen when the market changes? Because we know change is inevitable. How we react to it, that's up to us. But the market's always going to change. So if we're working on making powerful questions, make them powerful. Christina, what do you imagine your ideal home to be like? Love that. And let them talk. Let them talk. What would happen if we did meet this week and have a conversation regarding your property and how it would net you. Love that. That, Janet, that is a great question to be asking now as you're making care calls, or all those people that say, I just want to wait until after the holidays. Well, what would happen if we did meet this week and had a conversation regarding your property and how it will net you top dollar? And then we could set you up for success as you're putting away all your holiday decorations. That is what you want, isn't it? And I just added a few more language patterns in there. Janet, what does a private yard look like to you? You guys are getting the hang of it. This is great. How many of you found yourself speaking in powerful questions this week? Or better yet, found yourself using the word why and stopped yourself and thought, I shouldn't do that because that's not powerful. That happened to anybody? Some me's, some somewhats, yes. Remember, this is the way you learn this, and the way it becomes powerful, and the way you become a practitioner of all of these language of sales techniques is by actually using them. So Dan, we have a hand up. Dan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a quick story. So I was going to
Yes.
get blood drawn. It was always fun. I know y'all like to have that done. And I sat down in the chair, and it was actually a really small room, and there were 3 technicians in that room. And the technician that was doing the blood draw asked me, kind of, how's your day? You got anything planned? Kind of those questions. And I shot back with a powerful question that was like, because she was talking about how she just was ready for winter to be over already. I was like, wow, it just started. And I said, tell me more about what it would be like for it to be May right now. And all 3 sat there, and we talked for, the entire time my blood was being drawn. And it was over in a second, and everybody had engaged at that time. And I hadn't said much more except for added a little bit to the conversation. So it was pretty cool.
So what was your learn there, Dan?
Well, it's just being hyper aware out there on how to get people to engage. And I spent some time writing questions more about connection questions for Sphere of Influence and calls, because I feel like I'm pretty good when it comes to moving people along through the transaction. What I want to be better at is really, when I call somebody I haven't talked to in a long time, is throwing out a powerful question that creates a great conversation.
Love that. Love that. And what I loved was the simplicity of that question. It was just, tell me more about blank. And that is the key to this, guys. I mean, so oftentimes, and I've seen coaches do this a lot, where they think they have to have this, like earth-shattering question. The point of asking powerful questions is not to confuse the listener. It's to make them just they can't answer habitually. They have to stop and think, oh, okay, well, this is what it would look like. And, Dan, what would be really cool is, I don't know what market you're in. Dan, what market are you in, real quick?
Bellevue, Washington.
Bellevue, Washington. So, we could also put on our realtor hat and go from there and say, wow, it is still warm in certain parts of the country. Have you ever thought about relocating? If you were to relocate, where would you relocate to, where it is like summer right now? So, it's a great jumping off point to have future questions, right? Or future
Absolutely.
Conversations with people. So I love that you're using this for connection. So thank you for sharing that, and thanking.
So if you ever want to pass the time during a blood draw, just use a powerful question.
Ask that question. Exactly. Love it. So let's move on to the next part. The next part of our growth work, I asked you to specifically listen for the use of modal operators in the language of those that you interact with, whether they were buyers, sellers, team members, friends, family members, all of the above. My request in having you do that work was to become more aware of the programming of the listener. And by using the recovery questions or changing modal operators, well, you just create more options for them by allowing them to lean into their personal power. So the first question is, what did you learn about your listener? So think of one instance this week when you really keyed into a modal operator. And if you'd like to, if you feel confident and you'd like to come on, just raise your hand, and happy to have you share what the situation was and what you heard. And I'll give you all, y'all shy people, a few minutes. Stephen, thanks for stepping up. Go ahead and unmute yourself. So Stephen, go ahead and tell us about the modal operator you heard and what did you learn from it?
A lot of times I'm hearing with clients about have tos, I've got to, I need to, which is more necessity. And one of my aha moments, not so much about changing the modal operator, but I did a little bit of digging down, and I did on my phone some like, what is a modal operator? And there was just too much information. But the big aha moment was they talked about how it's an attitude. And as soon as I switched out it being not so much like what's a modal operator, but when I talk about what's a people's mode of attitude, so it's almost like a modal attitude, immediately it went to energy. So what's their energy? I need to, I have to, I must. And then what is that tie down question? What is that empowering question where you could get to the energy? Well, what would it be like if you chose to do it? How would that change your energy and your attitude towards it? And as soon as I started doing that, then boom, people started moving.
First of all, applause for your commitment to learning the concepts. And secondly, that's exactly it. We're listening for it, at the very core, are they at choice? Because when people are at choice, they feel empowered. So if they're saying, I need to, where do you hear choice in that? I have to. There's no choice in there. They literally feel like they have no choice. And remember, one of the most important things we said is if people are showing up with negative necessity, right? Negative modal operators, we got to get them to neutral. Because unless we get them to neutral, they're never going to see the possibility of moving forward. You can't go from negativity to possibility without going through neutral. So I love that. Thanks for sharing. Christina, go ahead and unmute yourself. What's going on?
Hi, thank you. So a lot of the clients that I work with are athletes and they're young. The one that I worked with this week, 15 years old, doesn't talk much and had gone to her first competition and has been struggling with fear, and perception is their reality or anybody's reality. But when you're dealing with teenagers, it really is kind of difficult.
Yes.
And so she and her mom came into the office and were requesting for her level to be changed. And long story short, she said, well, I feel like I am doing A work, but I'm getting B credit. And I said, tell me more about that. And she started sharing what it was. And I said, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the comparison to school because that's what you can relate to. And I said, however, gymnastics is different. We had a further discussion, and what we got down to, the crux of it was her fear, her mindset was keeping her locked. It's true, she can do A-level skills. However, up here, she was having to fit inside of the B-level class or a lower level class because she mentally was keeping herself in a situation. So for safety, that's where we had to put her. After the conversation, she understood, and we were able to come to a compromise where I would allow her to do the level 9 under the conditions she would get into therapy to help with the mindset.
Wonderful. So, and I'm sure what was underlying in all of that was when you were interviewing her, for lack of a better term, it was the language she was using that gave you that great peek into her internal representations and her beliefs. And for those that don't know Christina is one of our brand new life coaches to MAPS, and she works with elite gymnasts, things like that. So, think Simone Biles this year when she was having her issues, mentally, twisties, getting out of her own way with the twisties. Exactly. So it's getting through what are the questions, seeing possibility on the other side. And well, in this case, you were able to put together a plan for her. So thank you so much for sharing that. We appreciate that. Awesome. So you guys are getting the hang of it. And if for some reason you're feeling lost, I did see when we were scrolling through, a lot of you are getting this. If you're feeling lost, show up for the office hours. We've got 2 coming up, and we'll give you those days and times at the end of this class. So with regards to modal operators, the other thing we talked about then was challenge or recovery questions, right? We talked about if they said something like, I can't do this. You know what? I can't write the offer. Can't would be the word that you would key in on because their brain is telling them they can't do it. Now, unless for some reason were incapacitated and they couldn't use their hands, well, they can write an offer. And so what we're listening for is what is their automated language? And again, please, everybody, if you're not speaking, go ahead and mute yourself. You know, what is the language they're using? Because that automatic habitual language is what's driving them. It's the little voice talking to them, going, you can't do this, you can't do this. And then you would use a recovery question where if I said, I can't write the offer, everybody type in the box what a recovery question could be. So what's a recovery question 2? I can't write the offer. What would it look like to write the offer? What would it look like if you did? What would happen if you did? That's exactly it. What could happen if you could? How could you not write the offer? Right? There's so many ways. What specifically is holding you back? A recovery question just simply takes what they're saying and says, and challenges it. And remember, it challenges it in a way that isn't confrontational. You know, you can't write the offer. So help me understand, is it that you can't write it or you won't? What's going on here? It's a way for you to open the discussion to, again, get a further peek. I love using things like this, you know, like the little emoji that like the head wide open and blown. You want to get that peek inside their brain of what's going on. And remember, this method of using recovery questions causes the client. It actually causes them to shift their focus in a very subtle way to possibility. And when the clients can shift their focus in that subtle way, and remember, they feel empowered to make a choice, who do they anchor that positive feeling to? You. Point at the sky that's sitting right next to you. They anchor it to you. And people want to hang around with people that make them feel good. And you do want them to feel that way about you, don't you? So continue to listen for modal operators. Let me tell you, you're about to embark on the weeks of the holidays. Family interactions, listen to modal operators, use recovery questions. These are things that are going to help you, you know, the same way Dan had shared with us that he was able to build that rapport with a couple of strangers getting blood drawn. Imagine what it could do for you and your family if you actually appeared to truly take interest and listen to them. So nice job. Let's see. Now, let's take a look at our lesson for today. And remember, whenever you see something in purple or underlined or pink and underlined, it's a fill in the blank in your workbook. So language, as we've been discussing, is primarily unconsciously driven. It's driven from, I call the unconscious back here. It's unconsciously driven, which means that people speak without giving much thought to the words they use. You know, people's words are habitual. Their vocabulary is habitual. The words come out. It's an important aspect of communication, and in this class, language of sales, the concept of rapport. You know, using the chat box, give us your quick little definition of rapport. What does rapport mean to you? Building trust, developing trust, getting warm and fuzzy, a relationship. connecting, easy communication, relationship building, having a fantastic, getting connection. I love that. Relationship, connection, trust comes from having a relationship and a connection. So I love that. Here's how the dictionary defines it. This is the online Google dictionary, since we need to footnote everything. Defines rapport as a close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. So take a minute and just read that again in your mind. A close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. I mean, that is why you're here, right? To learn how to communicate better, to break down people's walls, to get an insight into their internal representations. So think back through the first 2 sessions of Language of Sales. What's one language pattern that we've already learned that allows you to identify agreement and understanding? What language pattern that we've already talked about in session 1 or 2 allows you to identify agreement and understanding? I see a lot. Acknowledge and validate, tie downs, modal operators. Modal operators allow us to identify it. Acknowledge and validate allows us to identify it, and tie downs allow us to identify. Now, if we're really looking for agreement, because remember, in acknowledging and validate, we identify, but are we agreeing? Everybody shake your head and say, no, we're not agreeing. We're telling them we hear them and we understand, but we may not agree. And so tie downs was the answer to that, because the tie downs, we just throw it in there, we nod our head and they're agreeing with us and we move on. So this is the exact reason you'll choose to master the effective use of tie downs. Am I right? And yes, boom, boom. I just put one in there. So let's face it, anytime we can make communication easy, conversations from lead to first meeting to agreement or contract, well, they become easier. Take a moment and remember why you're in this program. Your active engagement can make you money or it can cost you money. When using effective communication, notice I said the word effective, rapport is easily established through communicative components called pacing, which is simply a form of subtle feedback. For the listener, pacing prompts subtle feedback and a sense of being liked, leading to greater trust in the communicator. So let's talk some more about rapport. There are 2 methods of pacing that result in rapport that seems instantaneous. The first is matching. And matching is basically you're matching their, this is going to be a tongue twister, predicative preferences. They're predicates. It's that whole 6th grade language of sale or 6th grade language arts stuff again. It's matching a person's predicative preferences by using their words back to them and matching their voice characteristics, etc. So that's matching. Mirroring is basically mirroring their posture, their gestures, the rate of breathing, amongst other things. So when you match a person's preferences, repeating their catchphrase or keywords, you're matching the use of that person's grammatical predicates. In plain English, it's using the verbs, adverbs, and adjectives that they use right back with them. An example would be this, using the word sounds. As you pick up their use of that word in a conversation, they say something, sounds, whatever, and you use it back to them like this. They may say, well, that sounds good. And then later on in the conversation, you say in a different context, it didn't sound right. And in your language, you've responded with, so it sounds to me like. When you're using their words back to them, you're going to build rapport. Why? What did we just say about vocabulary? It's habitual. And when people like people who are like them, and when you use their words back, they think on an unconscious level, they're like me. I like them. Remember, people like people who sound like them. Very important. So I'm guessing, just a wild guess here, that you know someone who consistently uses a certain phrase. Got a friend who always says, the bottom line is. And they use that as the predicate to communicate the fundamental meaning of an outcome, right? Like let's cut to the chase, or the bottom line is. So this friend always says the bottom line is. Another person may use the phrase at the end of the day. Again, cutting to the chase, getting to the end, getting to the outcome. And it's all to express the essence of a result. They're both conveying the same thing, yet doing it with different phrases based on their own habitual vocabulary. And when you use their preferred phrase, so I'm guessing the bottom line is, it creates that sense of rapport. You are literally communicating with your listener from their model of the world, which leaves them feeling that you're like them. And people like doing business with people like them. Now, another aspect of matching involves a person's voice characteristics. Voice matching includes focusing on the speaker's tonality, volume, rate of speech. And when you lead generate, practice this coming week, or even around your family, friends, whatever, you're going to a holiday party, practice matching your prospect, specifically paying attention to their tonality, volume, and rate of speech. Those three things, and they should be in your workbook: tonality, volume, and rate of speech. You'll automatically achieve better results and build rapport with every prospect, especially hostile prospects, when you match their tone. So let's have a little fun. Somebody want to play with me here? Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand, and just raise your hand so you come to the top. Okay, hit the hand raise button so I can see you. So, Angela, I want to see you though, so hit the hand raise button because it pops you to the top.
How do I do that? Hand raise.
Bottom of your screen. There you go, Angela. Okay, so Angela, I'm going to say ring, 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 and you say hello any way you want, okay?
Okay.
Ready? Okay, so ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello. Is this Angela?
Yeah, who's this?
All right, so did you notice how Angela said hello? And did you notice how I said hello? All right, Angela, do another one. So sure. think of a way. Okay.
I will.
Ring, ring.
Yeah.
Ring,
hello.
Ring. Hello.
Who is this?
This is Kara. Who is this?
This is Angela. Why are you calling me?
Angela, I'm so excited to talk to you on the phone today. The reason I'm calling is. All right. So do you have one more in you, Angela?
Yeah, I do. I love this stuff. I mirror accents and everything. I love
it.
So, yeah.
I love it. All right. So let me shake it out. All right. Okay. So we'll do it. Last one. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello. Is this Angela?
Oh, yeah. How are you? Is this Kara?
It is, Angela. I'm so excited to talk to you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing so good.
That's great. Okay, that one's hard. That one hurts physically. All right. So do y'all get the picture of what we're doing here? Angela, thanks so much. Everybody,
Thank you.
give Angela some claps there.
Can I just, whenever somebody picks up with like a Southern accent, or I'm from the East Coast originally, or like New York, I immediately like mirror that accent. It's kind of fun. You feel like you're acting sometimes. And then funny makes money. That's what I always learn. Funny makes money.
I love that.
So
that might be a new key phrase. Funny makes money. And you're right. It's absolutely picking up on what they're doing and just putting it right back. Now, I can honestly tell you that not once when Angela was doing that did I feel uncomfortable. I was just I practiced in listening and talking back. And I probably could have continued the conversation, the last one with the high voice, if I really had to speak to her about, if I was calling for a purpose, for a while. And that's what's going to build rapport with her. So let's see, we had some fun. Now, one of my good friends always tells the story of, there was a time he was prospecting, and boy, he loves to prospect. And he called, and a child answered, and the child said, hello. And he said, hello, is your mom there? And he heard the kid yell, hey mom, dad's on the phone. That's how good he was at building rapport and mirroring in this case, and matching their tonality. So keep that in mind. You win when you can fool the other person on the phone. So let's talk about the second method of pacing. Oh, wait, went one too far. A second method of pacing, called mirroring, involves subtly imitating the physical characteristics of the person you're demonstrating. So for instance, if you're both sitting there, and you guys can see me right now, and if you're at the table and maybe they're sitting there, and they're kind of leaning on their hands like this. So you just kind of lean on your hands, or you lean on one of them. Now you don't go like, if they go like this, you don't go, or you subtly make these changes. Like right now, I don't know if y'all can still see Angela, but she's just kind of hanging out here. So if I was going to talk to Angela and really wanted to build rapport, I'd probably just hang out like this for a little bit. So that we were on the same wavelength. Yeah. I don't know. You can see. So couple things with this. If you're both sitting, notice the way they're sitting. Are they up straight? Are they leaning back? Are they leaning forward? Adjust your body to mirror and match them. Please don't be on an appointment where they're like leaning way back and you're leaning way up. I mean, it just is uncomfortable. They might be leaning back because you're in their space. So respect that and mirror. And if they're like way back like this, you don't have to be way back like this, but you can at least be back a ways. So pay attention to what they're doing. Now, here's the other thing. These guys, watch their hands. Do they use their hands to talk, or do they keep their hands folded or at their side? In order to build rapport, always mirror their use of the body. When you're around people, pay attention. Take note of that body language. And when you mirror their body language, you're going to build rapport effortlessly. Now, a question that comes up is, and I'm going to help you out in this situation. A question comes up a lot of time because we're real estate agents and we're sitting at, say, someone's kitchen table on a listing appointment, and you've got one person that's leaning forward and another one that's like leaning back like this. And you're like, Kara, what should I do? Well, I mean, can you kind of lean back and forward at the same time? Or if you can figure out who's the decision maker, tend to mirror and match them more. Now, please pay attention to this. If you are in a situation where there is a husband-wife couple, please respect boundaries, and if you're a female, don't be overly don't overdo the rapport with the male. And if you're a male, don't overdo it with the female. You guys are all catching my drift, right? You don't want to put yourself in a situation where the other spouse, significant other, decision maker says, yeah, we're not working with them because I don't like the way they were around you. They were a little too close to you. So use your emotional intelligence in this. I trust you all know when to turn it up and when to turn it down. So let's get real for a moment. How many of you are feeling a little uncomfortable right now? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. If you are, good. Because when you first start to mirror and match, it should feel a little uncomfortable. Do this with your family, watching TV, having a conversation, whatever. Man, you do this with one of those open-ended, powerful questions and do some of this and build some rapport. Man, they're going to be talking. So let's move on to our next lesson for today, and that is presuppositions. So as you can see, we've got the definition of presuppositions on the screen. We're going to be covering specifically two kinds: awareness and automatic. And what is a presupposition? Well, it's defined as the act of presuming, a presumption made prior to actually having knowledge. We're presuming something to be true, but we don't have actual knowledge. So it's a presumption. So what does that mean? It's presupposing is believing that a particular thing is true without any proof. A supposition is something that is suggested as might be true or that is accepted as true on the basis of some evidence, but there's not actually truth. So a presupposition means we're actually putting it out there and putting it out there to believe it before we have any evidence. So let's take a look at this. Here's a sample. Do you need to walk around the backyard again before we write the offer? So if I'm an agent and I said that to someone, do we need to walk around the backyard again before we write the offer? Use the chat box and let us know what's presumed here. Do you need to walk around the backyard before we make an offer? You guys are right. That an offer is being written, right? And at this point, you don't, as an agent, you don't necessarily know that. They haven't told you that yet. They haven't said, oh, we want to go write an offer. It's keying in and you knowing that, wow, a great backyard is important to them. So you say, do you want to walk around the backyard again before we go make an offer? So you're putting it out there, and you're absolutely right that there's going to write an offer. Now, you're probably already realizing that presuppositions are used every day by you and everyone you know. They're the things that you presume given statements that you hear and make. They're believed to be true just because of the language you use. So, for example, in a simple statement like, oh, there we go, the dogs are chasing each other in the backyard. There's a couple presuppositions built into it, right? So the dogs are chasing each other in the backyard. So consider this. There's some sort of activity happening outside, because where's a backyard? It's outside, right? There's more than one yard because we referenced the backyard. And there's more than one dog because we said there's multiple dogs. The dogs are chasing each other in the yard. All of these things are presumed from one simple statement. So consider your listener has zero evidence that any of this is actually true. Interestingly enough, though, the listener doesn't consciously challenge the details of the statement. Based on the statement, we can agree that the listener won't question whether or not there are dogs or whether they're inside. Their attention is focused on what the dog might be doing in the yard. So since presuppositions presume something that's already true, when you use a presupposition in a sentence, you, as the speaker, must believe the presupposition to be true in order for the sentence to be effective and accepted by the listener. So think about it. I saw in the scroll, someone said, are we being pushy? Well, if you've had a consultation, you've looked at houses with a person, the clients, you know that this house checks every single box. Is it pushy to lead them in the direction of their goal? The answer should be unequivocally no. You're not pushing them to do anything. Think of our modal operators. You're actually moving them towards their goal, right? You're not pushing them away from anything at that point. So there's two different types of presuppositions, and we've already gone over these little things, the activity, more than one dog, etc. So the first is awareness presuppositions. Awareness presuppositions. And it's when you imply that you're aware of a certain thing, and it will immediately draw your listener's attention to it. In the awareness presupposition, you are taking the focus off of the subject and redirecting their focus to where or why it's that way. So awareness presuppositions presume that a person is now aware of something that wasn't there before. And when used properly, they create a new reality for people that will impact their decision making and their behavior. If any resistance is experienced, well, the resistance is going to happen around the level of awareness, not the message you're actually communicating to them. So in your book, and I'm about to put on the screen, let's look at the comprehensive list of awareness presuppositions. And these are, again, I like to call them our cheat sheets. So when you're doing your growth work over the next week or so, these are words you're going to use. You know, begin, beginning, become aware, pay attention, notice, noticing, feel, feeling, understand, understanding, discovering, already, experiencing, a whole list of them on your page and in your workbook. So if you look at this list of words, just quickly scan it. Type in the box a word that you habitually use that you see on the screen. Go ahead and type it in the box. Realize, notice, already, assume, feel, imagine, feeling, imagine, knowing, considering, feel, pay attention. So what you're saying is, you're already using awareness presuppositions. You just don't know you're using them. And now that you have awareness around using awareness presuppositions, you can actually use them to become a more powerful language practitioner. So that is your habitual vocabulary. Now let's create a couple awareness presupposition sentences so that, and what we want to do with this is we're going to direct someone's attention to what you'd like them to focus on. And we're going to use the following steps. So we're going to decide what decision or action or belief you want to induce in someone. And this should be in your book, the steps. You're going to decide what decision, action, or belief you want to induce on someone. Then you're going to introduce the idea with a presupposition. So in this case, the example on the screen, naturally, you're paying attention to the urgency to sell your home now as the market is changing. So it makes sense to list now. Naturally, you're paying attention to the urgency. So in this example, the listener's attention has shifted to the urgency to sell as the market is changing through the awareness presupposition of paying attention. It may sound awkward. Let's be honest. It may sound awkward, feel awkward to you when you first start using these. So let's create a couple of examples around how this all works so that you can better understand. So let's do another one. So if I were to say to you, you know, once you begin to notice the increasing number of homes coming on the market every day, you'll decide to sell now. All you're doing is making them aware of what? There's an increasing number of homes coming on the market. And just telling them because of that, they're going to want to sell now. Remember, we're creating awareness around something that is happening that is going to impact their ultimate goal. So in this example, we've shifted the listener's focus to noticing the number of homes coming on the market. As I said, we're going to do one more, and excuse me for one sec. So here's the next one. As we get closer to this next home, you'll start to realize what a great neighborhood it's in. And with all the amenities in this area, it just feels like home. In this one, through your use of awareness presuppositions, you've directed the buyer to the value of the neighborhood and how right it feels, right? So you don't have to use just one. You can use two. And I mean, this is a natural sentence. And I'm guessing a lot of you already use this. You just don't realize you're using this technique. So that's awareness presuppositions. Now let's move on to automatic presuppositions. Our second one is the presumption that something is going to happen automatically. It's going to happen automatically. And based on that underlying presumption, this type of presumption is called, well, an automatic presumption. They're not real creative with these names, let me just tell you. An automatic presupposition presumes not only that something will happen automatically, it also presumes that it's going to happen whether the listener wants it to happen or not. So in our box, in your book, examples of automatic presuppositions: automatically, naturally, continuously, spontaneously, unconsciously, logically, effortlessly. etc. So let's take a look at some examples. And again, I believe these are in your book too. So the first one, after we get done discussing the market, most people instinctively list at my strategic price. So it just logically sells and they net the most money. So after we get done discussing the market, most people instinctively list at my strategic price. So it just logically sells to net the most money. Okay, so here's another one. You'll effortlessly get more excited about working with me to sell your house as we go through the action plan I've designed specifically for you. Logically, when we're done, you'll just sign the contract knowing that the sooner we start, the faster your home will sell. So you probably notice, because it's underlined 3 different places, that they use both automatic and awareness presuppositions in that sentence. And using the chat box, tell me this. What is the power of this sentence or the outcome it produces for the listener? What's the power of the sentence or the outcome that it's producing for the listener? What's the ultimate outcome? Confidence moving forward, hearing a lot of things. The ultimate thing that it produces is that their home is going to sell fast. And that's what they want. They want a quick sale. Now, let's say they weren't about a fast sale. They were about getting their price. You could easily tweak the sentence. And at the end say, the more money we'll get for your home. It's just, how are you using the language? How are you using the language? So let's take a look at your growth work for the week and any questions and answers you might have. So take a moment, write this down. These are our next two office hours. Now remember, office hours are not me teaching you new material, bonus material, anything like that. It is a place to show up, and had quite a few of you last week that showed up and had questions or wanted more specific clarification of some of the concepts we've been learning, or to share what your response has been. So to actually using these things, and remember, if you're not failing while using them, are you really using them enough? Think about that. If you don't have friends or a family member catching you using these, you're either amazing at it or you're not practicing enough. So office hours tomorrow, 11 Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, 8 Pacific. And then next Wednesday, the 22nd at 1 Eastern, 12 Central, 11 Mountain, and 10 Pacific. That is the Zoom access. This will all be in the Facebook chat as well. In our Facebook group, we'll put it in there, and you can always find the information in there. Remember, as you do your growth work during the week, I'm happy to give you any feedback. Just tag me in the post. So before we go over the growth work for the week, what questions do you have specifically relating to today? Rapport building, any of our presuppositions, etc. And Yvonne, nope, no password needed for Zoom. It's just easier than giving you all a password. You can just click on it, you show up, and boom, you're there. So, all right, let me see who this is. I can't see the name. Gary from Seattle. What about using specific language like yup, Should you match them? What do you think? Yep. So if you're talking to someone and they answer and they instead of saying yes, they say yep. You don't want to say yes, please, or yes. No, you want to say yep, whatever it is. Speak to them in their language. That's how they feel comfortable with you. Great question. Let me scroll up, see were there any others. Any other questions for today? And feel free, if you have a question too, that just raise your hand. We'll unmute you and you can ask in front of the group. You guys are such an amazing group and so learning based. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So let's do this. Let's go over your growth work for the week. I'll hang around till the top of the hour. And if you have any questions, we'll answer them. So your growth commitment for the next week. Now, remember, after this, we have 2 weeks off. We're not back together until the first week of January, other than for the office hours. If you need something, tag me in a post on the Facebook page. If you have questions, come to the office hours. So here's your growth work. You're going to write 5 awareness presuppositions for a minimum of 5 days, or a collective of 25 sentences for a 1 week period. 25 sentences, and underline the awareness presupposition in them. And then you're going to write 5 automatic presupposition sentences and do the same thing. You're going to have 25 sentences total. So of each of those 25 and 25, you're actually going to be writing 50 sentences in the next week. It's 10 a day. And believe me, once you start rolling on this stuff, it becomes very easy. Now, consciously focus. This is going to be the fun part over the holidays. Trust me on this. Consciously focus on building rapport with every care call, every lead generation call, every happy holidays call, every happy new year call, every appointment over the next week. Don't stop there though. Who's that person in your family that you never really related to, or that you don't see very often? Go work on some of the rapport building with them. At the end of the day, sales come and go. Your family's with you. Family is with you. So, and then of course, continue to share your sentences on the Facebook page. Have a practice partner say them. Let me give you a little tip here. When these things feel really uncomfortable, when you're saying them, one of the tricks that we use to learn these things, and we don't really talk about using scripts anymore, especially in this class, because I don't believe in having scripts. I believe in having meaningful conversations with people that get them to their goals. What you want to do to really learn some of these faster and just go, man, I really wish I could internalize these things faster, is write your sentences, take your homework, go into the bathroom. Stick with me here. This is clean, okay? Go into the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, and look in the mirror and read your sentences out loud to yourself. Because what happens is neurologically, you're processing and you're hearing it and you're seeing it and you're hearing it and you're seeing it, as opposed to just hearing it in your head all the time. And that's the way you learn things. People that really want to learn this stuff record themselves doing it, and then they listen to the recording over and over and over again. You put it on super quiet and you listen to yourself. You know how we used to say, well, I don't know, I use we, maybe it was just me in college when there would be some stuff that I really wanted to learn, and it was like, oh, I wish I could just learn it by osmosis, fall asleep on the book and have it sink in. Well, now we've got this great little thing like Audible, and we walk around with these like mini recorders, right? Record yourself and then listen to it. Listen to it over and over. You're going to internalize things so much faster. Voice memos to yourself. Love that, Angela. And then share your sentences. Now, remember, I'm just going to go to this next thing back here so that you can have the office hours and the Zoom again if you need it. We've got a couple minutes left, a minute left. Let's see. Renee says it can be jarring when a client swears a lot. How do we develop a rapport without feeling stiff? That it's in your tonality. You don't have to say the words back, but you can have the same tonality. You know, if someone says, oh man, blah, 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 you just, I totally understand. It's in the tonality. It's not necessarily the words then. If those aren't your words, then don't. What are your thoughts about mirroring and matching a client or an agent that's a bully? Well, again, it's about that tonality. It's, first of all, choose whether you really want to work with that client. If they're a bully, and and you're not feeling like you can build rapport with them, set them free. Refer them to the bully in your office. No, I'm just kidding. Set them free. You don't have to work with anybody. You have choices, especially when you lead generate and you talk to people all the time. Do your best. And in your gut, in your core, if you're not feeling like they're a good fit, don't do it. Now, before you all go, I just want to remind you too that MAPS has an incredible lineup of holiday calls over the next 2 weeks. You should have all gotten an email. We'll post the link for the holiday calls. I'm doing one on Tuesday at 1:00 Central on your habits. Are your habits using you? And how do we break some of those habits? So y'all have a great, happy, Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. Have a wonderful couple weeks off. Enjoy family, friends. Be ready to hit the ground running with our new language skills. I can't wait to hear how you use them over the holiday break. Take care, everyone. Have yourself a great break. I'm here if you need me. Take care. Bye-bye.